My mountain life. Good morning, everyone. I am in the north or the south orchard right now. This orchard I developed probably, well, I started it maybe 4 years ago, but only like with 2 or 3 trees at the end, and I didn't have this big fence. I believe the last time that I videoed for this channel, I was putting this fence around, and so I've completed the fence. I just haven't connected the gate properly yet, but I did finish the gate as well. And like the other gate on the other side, which is the north orchard, it's just separated by a road or a potential road in the future. But I dug down 4 feet, and then I put the posts in. So these posts are 12 foot tall, and then I basically put concrete around the whole base of both of these, and it's really solid. Like, these things are not going to move. What really sucked about doing this process, however, was that's about 3.5 feet, or 3 to 3.5 feet, somewhere in there, of heavy clay, which is a real bear to dig through, I'll tell you. I mean, you're literally, it's like concrete, depending on the time of year. And even when it's kind of a mud, it's got moisture in it, it's still difficult to get through. So, but I have to finish the fence off here, cut it, nail it in here, and then cut it. Right now, though, I have other priorities that I'm working on before I go back to the fence to finish off the gate. This is an 8-foot tall fence around the whole perimeter that I worked on, that you probably, the last video you could see that I worked on. It keeps the deer out. So there's a lot of pests that you have to deal with a fruit orchard, and anybody who has an orchard knows this. A lot of different challenges. And some people say, well, orcharding is like an art form. Well, it's really kind of a science, but the actual science is so complicated that it is probably better to refer to it as an art. But this is what I used to do. So this right here is you've seen this when you go to the parks. They'll put something like this around a tree, and then they'll have a fence post in. One of these fence posts, like 3 of them, and that keeps the deer off. So, and it is effective. The deer are only going to go through as much as they can and eat the leaves that they can get to, but the main thing is they're not going to destroy the tree. And so I have some of these that are 5 foot tall, and some that I had cut around that are 6 foot tall, and it did work. And I've got a few left on the outside here. I mean, I must have had 40 of these at one time, I think. And I've kind of put them out there to protect some of the cottonwoods and the spruces from the deer, because they literally mow the entire forest down if they get a chance. And there's a lot, like there's one right there. I don't know if you can see that little white-tailed deer in there. Right there, little white-tailed deer. But yeah, the population of deer in my area, there's probably 20 in this back area. And to kind of give you an explanation of what this area is like, so it's kind of mostly flood zone A, which means it's going to flood every year. Well, maybe not every year, but every 3rd or 4th year, and there'll be water for about a month, or 2 weeks to a month, and then it'll subside. But it's not really a buildable area. But this area here is more like flood zone B, I'm going to say. The other thing that I've had to deal with are voles. Now initially, and voles are even worse than deer. The deer were easy to deal with. The voles are a pain. So initially I put these white protectors around the trees to stop the voles from girdling the trees. But then when I started putting wood chips down, because I've watched a lot of videos and it talk about a lot of wood chips that'll help you know, overall keep the grass kind of at bay a little bit, and it will eventually lead to better soil conditions over time. Like, it's kind of like a fertilizer almost, just a matter of like years instead of, you know, a shot of fertilizer, which is what a lot of people will put on things. Well, that didn't work, because what happens with the wood chips is it invites the voles in. The voles are like, thank you very much for a home. So they move in, and some of them find their way to the root system, and they'll actually eat the roots to the point where the tree will start leaning. And I've seen videos where people will show that. So this is my solution to the problem. This little fence is actually 2 feet tall, but you only see a foot because the other foot is in the ground. So if the idea is if the voles come to through the wood chips, they'll come to this fence and then they won't go any further. Now, I've always asked myself, why wouldn't they just climb the fence with their little claws or whatever, and then, you know, pop over the top of it and then get into the wood chips? I'm not sure if that'll happen. It's possible, and so I'm not going to say this is a foolproof plan. In fact, I've started putting these protectors well, I have them for 2 reasons. One, for the voles, but the second reason is sun scald, which, because I live in a northern climate, sun scald is a real problem, or can be. And so I'm going to be putting them on the inside of this anyway, so it's kind of like 2 layers of protection. I mean, if voles get in, they're going to probably go down, burrow under, and eat the roots anyway. So I'm not sure how much protection it's going to be. But it's not like the voles kill every tree. So like, here's one that's been around for one of my older ones in this orchard, and it's been around since I think about 3 or 4 years ago. I think 4 years ago. So I think I planted this tree, and maybe one other one 4 years ago. And then there's some that I planted 3 years ago, and then some 2 years ago, and then some just this year. The ones that are just this year are easy to tell because they have the fence. And that's a lot of work, by the way. Not only do you dig the hole, but then you have to take this little fence, and I buy them in 25-foot rolls, although I think I should get larger rolls if I can find them. And then I cut them, make a circle with them, put them on the outside of the hole, and then I put the tree in with the dirt, you know. And this, so far, I experimented last year, and no voles bothered 2 of the trees, so that was really nice. The other pests that you deal with, you got diseases you have to worry about. This disease, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's you can see all these little spots on here. But I think, and I'm not sure, there's like 2 of them that could be scab for pears or cedar trellis rust. I know there's cedar trellis rust in this forest over here. That's what I'm thinking this is. And so, what do you do about cedar trellis rust? Well, there aren't a lot of pears that are immune to it. Not a lot of apples are immune to it. You know, most of them have, maybe some of them have some resistance to it. It won't kill the tree. It just disfigures it, and I think it probably makes it more difficult for the tree to grow through the the rust. But that's what I think this is what it is. That's what it looks like, I'm pretty sure. Now what'll end up happening is by the end of the year, if this is rust, it'll have on the back side of the leaves these little alien claw things that are sticking down. They look really like out of this world. But this is an Ubeline, and it's also in the same kind of location next to the forest. There's one leaf that shows it. I've actually picked some leaves off the top, but some of these other leaves on the bottom, unless this kind of like whitish look, unless that's the beginning of it, it may have some resistance to it. And this tree is actually, this is the second year this tree has been in. So I planted it last year, and it's doing pretty well. Now, these two varieties, and I'll talk about these in another video because I want to go over this morning while I have time, because this is the weekend and it's a long weekend, Memorial Weekend. I think it's May 25th, so 26th is tomorrow. But I want to kind of go over some videos, upload them, I'm hoping, get this channel going again a little bit. But this is an Ure, U-R-E. Now these trees were developed, I'm not 100% sure if they were developed in the United States or potentially Russia. But the concept was you have areas of the world that you are very cold, and you need a cold variety that will sustain the cold. These two trees, this one here, which is the Ure, and I think this is a later development of that Ure from what I read. It's called an early gold. Both of these are very, very cold hardy trees. They're the first ones that bloom out of all my trees in the orchard. Some people say, well, your Asian plums. Nope, these will bloom before the Asian plums. But I've never had fruit off of these. Like I said, this has been in the ground for 4 years. It was bought from a nursery. It wasn't tiny when I bought it. It was close to the same size as this. The reason I think that they grow so slowly is the soil conditions aren't really that great for them. It's heavy clay, and so they survive, they do okay, but I think it just took them longer to get into production. But you can see that we've got some fruit on them coming around. I don't know what that was. It's interesting. And then the early gold also has some fruit. I guess some pears coming about. So we're hoping we're going to be able to get some taste tests of these two to see how good they are. So I'm not sure, but let's see, what else do I deal with? Oh, aphids and ants on the Asian plums, and on some of the European plums too. As far as like what do I have in the orchard, I have close to 50 varieties of plums. Close to. I don't think I quite have 50, but we'll count it. We'll count it before the next video, and I can say that for sure. I think I have 12 varieties of cherry trees, 20 varieties of pears, and 20 varieties of apple trees. The whole concept of the orchard is, I mean, if you have an orchard of 200 trees, you know, let's say 150 to 200 trees, which is kind of where I'm going to be sitting at, I think, by the time I'm kind of done developing it. I don't really think, my theory was, I don't really think that I could really compete with, you know, the commercial sales. Like, I'm not going to really be able to compete with the grocery store. So if I sell the same varieties of things that the grocery store sells, I'm not 100% sure that that's going to be a very viable business. And so my idea was bring in rare varieties, more uncommon varieties for my area, if they'll grow. And then when I get the fruit off them, take them to the farmer's market. And it will be a fun experience because I love, you know, fruit trees, like probably a lot of other people that have their own channels with mangoes and stuff like that that I've watched. So I love fruit trees. I love the concept, or the the experience of having an orchard and learning all about nature and things. But I think it'd be kind of fun to talk with people while you're actually trying to get some money off of your labor at the market, the farmer's market. And so what better way to do that than to have a vast variety of different varieties of options for your customers to try. You know, they may not like some of them they might like a lot. And there's so much variation even within that, because I've heard people say, well, you know, depending on how you treat your trees, how much water you give them, and all kinds of other things, the soil they're growing in, you could have a variation of tastes even within the same varieties. Some people say, well, this variety tasted really good, and then somebody else will say, well, I've tried it and it doesn't really taste good, but then I tried it in a different climate and I actually liked them. So Mother Nature's just very interesting to me, because even though you can have one tree that probably has a similar taste across the board, it may not be exact. And that to me is just absolutely fascinating. The other thing I'm trying to do is I would like to get to a point where I can get the best tasting fruit that I can manage out of the orchard. Whether nature provides that themselves or whether I have to help out somehow, and I'm not sure how to do that yet. I'm actually open to ideas and comments, and I've been reading a lot of blogs trying to understand all that. I'm not sure I can talk about many more pests. Sometimes I'll get in the apples, apple leaves, I'll get caterpillars that I'll pick off. And they're actually, some of them were pretty voracious. I mean, they ate a lot of the leaves. Plum trees, it's the leaves, aphids actually absolutely love the leaves. But the fruit kind of gets left alone from my experience. Cherry trees, I've heard even from people close by that the cherries get eaten by the birds before they're even ripe. So I'm not sure how many cherries I'm going to have, but I did talk to somebody and they told me that they were actually able to get the bottom parts of the cherries, you know, like not the top part of the tree, but the bottom part, because the birds went for the top and they left the bottom alone, and they said that was just fine with them. They didn't want to get a ladder and get the top. So I'm not sure. Maybe if a tree is big enough, you can just let Mother Nature have some of the production of the tree. But I always worry, because you see these big, huge swarms of birds sometimes, whether they'll just come through and just absolutely destroy your entire crop. So I don't know about that. There are some cherry orchards nearby. When I say nearby, I mean within a half hour or 45-minute drive. And I wonder like how they deal with the birds and stuff, or even if they have to worry about it too much. I've heard people say that the plums sometimes will get picked by some of the birds, and they'll just go in and pick some of the parts of the plum. But I really haven't experienced that yet with the trees I have. But I haven't had that big of a production either. So as these orchards get more into production, I would imagine it's going to attract more pests that come in. I try not to spray, but I did have blossom blight in the tocas, really bad. And so I sprayed copper on them, and I'll show you one of the trees. This is a toca right here. That's a toca or a bubblegum plum. I got them because, boy, that plum really is tasty. It is so good. But the tree is very susceptible, in my opinion, to blossom blight. In my opinion, in my experience, I should say, in my area. But that may not be the case for everybody in the world, you know, that grows it in different places. But here, all of them. And by the way, I have five toca trees, or 5 of these bubblegum plums, and all 5 of them in various areas of the orchards, the north, south, and the home orchard, all had blossom blight. So I sprayed it with copper, and so far I have not seen any sign of blossom blight in the tree, which is a good sign, but I still have aphids. That's the other thing that the bubblegum plum likes, is aphids, or aphids like the tree. And it's strange because I'll have other plum trees nearby, other varieties like black ice, for example, and they won't hurt the black ice, but they'll go right after the toka. So if you're going to have aphids, look at your bubblegum plums, because they're probably going to be in there. I'll show you what I do with that later as I talk about the varieties. I don't think I can think off the top of my head anything else to talk about in this initial video for 2025. I'd like to get back and start talking about these trees because they're very interesting to me. The next video, I think I'm going to go over the various varieties of plums that I have, and then I'll talk in another video about pears and cherries and so on and so forth. So thank you for watching, and beautiful, beautiful. I love this month. May in my area is probably one of the nicest months there is, because everything is just turning green. The trees are blooming. I've just finished blooming with most of my trees. I'm trying to think, do I have any with any blossoms remaining? Most people, like when I see these videos, they're done like over a month ago, you know, in March or whatever. But my area, things don't stop blossoming until the end of May, and we don't start until the beginning of May. Everything's really condensed. Here we go. Here's a Coe's Golden Drop. It still has blossoms on it. So the end of the line for blossoms. Everything else is pretty much done. Oh, except for the apples. I think there's some apples that are still blooming. All right, I'll be back. We'll go over the varieties. Bye, Mountain Life. Hopefully you'll have interest in watching the next video.